The emergency room was chaos. A 5-car pileup on I-5 had turned a Tuesday afternoon into a war zone. Gurneys rushed past, doctors shouted orders, monitors beeped in urgent rhythms. In the middle of it all, an old man sat in the waiting area, holding a paper cup of tea that had gone cold hours ago. His name was Henry Nguyen. He was 67 years old, 5'6", with thin grey hair and hands that trembled slightly, the kind of tremor that comes from age, not fear. He wore a faded polo shirt with Nguyen's tea house embroidered on the pocket. He had been waiting for 4 hours. His wife Mai was somewhere in the back. Chest pains. The paramedics had rushed her in. And then, nothing. No updates, no information, just waiting. Henry had tried to ask the nurses. They looked through him like he wasn't there. He had tried to ask the receptionist. She told him to sit down and wait like everyone else. He had tried to approach a doctor, a tall man with silver hair and an air of authority, but the doctor had waved him off without breaking stride. "Sir, I don't have time for questions. We're dealing with critical patients." "My wife?" "Someone will update you. Eventually." The doctor walked away. Henry sat back down. He sipped his cold tea. He waited. He was used to waiting. He had waited in jungles. He had waited in refugee camps. He had waited in line at immigration offices while bureaucrats decided whether he deserved to exist in this country. Waiting was something Henry Nguyen knew how to do, but watching, that was something else. And right now, Henry was watching something that made his blood run cold. Dr. Huyen Van Nguyen was one of the finest surgeons in Saigon. He had trained in Paris. He had operated on generals and politicians. He had hands that could repair damage most doctors couldn't even diagnose. When the war ended, everything changed. The new government didn't trust Western-educated doctors. They didn't trust anyone with connections to the old regime. Dr. Nguyen was stripped of his license, his home, his identity. He became a refugee. In the chaos of escape, a fishing boat, 37 people, 12 days at sea, Dr. Nguyen stopped being a surgeon. He became just another desperate soul trying to survive. He arrived in California in 1982 with nothing. His medical credentials weren't recognized. His English was broken. His hands, which had saved hundreds of lives, were now used to wash dishes in a restaurant kitchen. He could have fought to get his license back. He could have retrained, recertified, started over. But by then he had seen too much death. The boat journey had taken his brother, his nephew, 3 friends. He had held them as they died of dehydration and exposure, powerless to save them despite all his training. He couldn't be a doctor anymore, not after that. So he opened a tea shop instead. Nguyen's tea house became a quiet corner of Little Saigon, a place where old Vietnamese men played chess and young Americans discovered oolong for the first time. Henry, he had Americanized his name, served tea, told stories, and tried to forget that he had ever held a scalpel. For 40 years, it worked. Then his wife had chest pains, and he found himself in a hospital, surrounded by doctors who looked at his polo shirt and saw nothing worth their time. Henry watched the emergency room with eyes that hadn't forgotten their training. He saw a young woman on a gurney, early 20s car accident victim. She was conscious but pale, her breathing shallow. The doctors had stabilized her and moved on to more urgent cases. But something was wrong. Henry could see it in the way she held her abdomen, the subtle distension, the way her eyes kept drifting, losing focus. Internal bleeding. Slow, but present. If they didn't catch it soon, she would crash. Henry stood and approached the nearest nurse. "Excuse me, the young woman in Bay 4. I think she may have internal bleeding. Her abdomen—" The nurse barely glanced at him. "Sir, please return to the waiting area." "I'm not asking for myself. I'm concerned about that patient. The way she's holding herself, the distension." "Sir," the nurse's voice hardened. "Are you a doctor?" Henry hesitated. I was. A long time ago." "Was?" The nurse almost laughed. "Sir, please, let the professionals handle this. We know what we're doing." She walked away. Henry looked at the young woman in Bay 4. Her eyes were closing. Her skin was getting paler. He had seen this before. in jungle hospitals, in refugee camps, in every place where death came slowly, and doctors were too busy or too proud to listen. He couldn't let it happen again. Henry walked toward Bay 4. "Sir," a security guard stepped in front of him. "You can't go back there. That woman is dying. Sir, please return to... She has internal bleeding. If someone doesn't examine her in the next 10 minutes, she will go into hypovolemic shock. I am trying to save her life." The commotion attracted attention. Dr. Richard Ashworth, the silver-haired man who had dismissed Henry earlier, strode over. "What's going on here?" "This man is trying to access the treatment area," the guard said. "Claims he's a doctor." Ashworth looked at Henry's tea-shop polo, his trembling hands, his small stature. "A doctor?" He smiled condescendingly. "And what medical school did you attend? T University?" A few nearby staff members chuckled. "I trained at the University of Paris," Henry said quietly. "I was a trauma surgeon in Vietnam for 15 years. "Vietnam?" Ashworth's eyebrows rose. "That was what, 50 years ago? Medicine has changed, my friend. We have machines now, protocols. We don't need advice from..." He gestured at Henry's shirt. "Tea salesman. That woman is dying. That woman has been stabilized. Her vitals are steady. She's waiting for imaging. She won't survive the wait. The bleeding is slow but constant. Her body is compensating. That's why her vitals look stable. But she's running out of time." Ashworth's face reddened. "I'm the chief of emergency medicine. I've been practicing for 30 years. And you're going to tell me how to do my job? I'm telling you what I see. What you're missing because you're too busy to look." The two men stared at each other. In Bay 4, the young woman's monitor began to beep. Her heart rate was climbing. Her blood pressure was dropping. The compensation was failing. "Code Blue, Bay 4!" Chaos erupted. Doctors and nurses swarmed the bay. The young woman was crashing, exactly as Henry had predicted. "She's hemorrhaging," someone shouted. "We need to get her to surgery now." Ashworth was frozen, watching his patient die because he had been too proud to listen. And then a voice cut through the chaos. "Let him through." Everyone turned. A man stood at the emergency room entrance. He was in his late 40s, wearing civilian clothes, jeans, a leather jacket, but he moved like a weapon. His eyes swept the room with calm authority, assessing threats, calculating options. Commander Marcus Stone had come to the ER because his daughter had been in the 5-car pileup. Minor injuries already treated. He was here to take her home, but he had recognized someone in the waiting room, someone he had never forgotten. "Let him through," Marcus repeated, walking toward the standoff. Ashworth turned. "And who the hell are you?" "Commander Marcus Stone, United States Navy." He reached Henry and put a hand on his shoulder. "And this man is going to save that girl's life." "This is absurd. He's not even licensed." "In 1987, I was a young SEAL on a classified mission in the Mekong Delta. My team was ambushed. I took shrapnel to the chest, the abdomen, and the leg. I should have died in that jungle." Marcus looked at Henry with something like reverence. "But there was a doctor, a Vietnamese surgeon who had been hiding refugees in the tunnels. He operated on me for 9 hours. 9 hours with no electricity, no modern equipment, and Viet Cong soldiers 50 meters away." The ER had gone silent. He used bamboo as drainage tubes. He sterilized instruments with rice wine. He kept me alive through pure skill and sheer will. Marcus pointed at Henry. "This is that doctor, Dr. Huyen Van Nguyen, the man who saved my life when every piece of modern medicine said I should be dead." He turned to Ashworth. "You see a tea seller. I see the greatest trauma surgeon I've ever known. Now let him through, or I will move you myself." Ashworth hesitated. His career, his pride, his authority, all of it hung in the balance. In Bay 4, the young woman was dying. "Fine," Ashworth spat. "But when this goes wrong, it's on you." Henry was already moving. He pushed through the crowd and looked at the patient, the monitors, the symptoms, the way her body was failing. "She has a splenic laceration," he said calmly. "The bleeding was controlled temporarily, but the clot has failed. She needs surgery immediately, but she won't survive transport." "Then what do we do?" a young resident asked. Henry looked at his hands. They were trembling. They had been trembling for years, But some things you don't forget. I need a surgical kit, lidocaine, suction, and someone to assist who can follow instructions without asking questions. The resident nodded. I'll assist. Good. Henry took a breath. Everyone else give me room. For the first time in 40 years, Dr. Huyn van Nguyen picked up a scalpel. The procedure took 23 minutes. 23 minutes of controlled chaos, of Henry's hands moving with a precision that defied his age, of the young resident following instructions in awed silence. Henry worked by feel as much as sight. He found the laceration, a 2-inch tear in the spleen. He controlled the bleeding with manual pressure while guiding the resident through the repair. Clamp here, no, gently. The tissue is friable. Good. Now, suture. Small bites. Even tension. The monitors stabilized. The bleeding stopped. The young woman's color began to return. When it was over, Henry stepped back. His polo shirt was covered in blood. His hands were shaking worse than ever. But the patient was alive. Get her to surgery for proper repair, Henry said quietly. I've bought her time, but she needs a full procedure to ensure the repair holds. The team rushed the gurney toward the OR. Henry stood alone in the bay, staring at his hands, the hands he had sworn would never operate again. Marcus appeared beside him. You still have it, Marcus said, after all these years. I never wanted to use it again. Henry's voice was barely a whisper. I watched too many people die that I couldn't save. I thought if I stopped being a doctor, I would stop losing patients. But you couldn't stop being who you are. Henry looked up at the man whose life he had saved 40 years ago in a jungle on the other side of the world. Neither could you, Commander. Marcus smiled. No, I couldn't. Dr. Ashworth approached them slowly. His face was a complex mixture of emotions, shame, anger, respect, confusion. His entire world-view had been shattered in the space of an hour. Mr. Nguyen. He couldn't quite meet Henry's eyes. I owe you an apology. You owe that girl an apology. If you had listened... I know. Ashworth's voice cracked. I know. I was arrogant. I assumed. I looked at you and I made assumptions. You saw a tea cellar. I saw what I expected to see, not what was actually there. Henry nodded slowly. That is a common disease, Dr. Ashworth. More common than any virus. More deadly than any cancer. He began to walk away, then stopped. My wife. Mine Nguyen. She was brought in 4 hours ago with chest pains. I still don't know how she is. Ashworth's face flushed with shame. I'll find out personally. Right now. 20 minutes later, Henry was led to Mai's room. She was stable, a minor cardiac event, treatable with medication. She would be fine. Henry? Mai looked at his blood-stained shirt with alarm. What happened? I was a doctor again today. After all these years? After all these years? He took her hand. The SEAL commander from long ago appeared. The girl from the accident was dying. I couldn't watch another person die when I had the power to save them. Mai squeezed his hand. That's who you are, my love, no matter how hard you try to hide it. The ceremony was held at Naval Base San Diego. Henry stood in the front row wearing an ill-fitting suit that Mai had bought him for the occasion. Beside him stood Commander Marcus Stone. Admiral James Richardson approached the podium. We are here today to recognize an extraordinary act of service. 40 years ago, Dr. Huyn van Nguyen, a Vietnamese surgeon hiding refugees in the Mekong Delta, saved the life of a young Navy SEAL at tremendous personal risk. 3 months ago, that same man saved another life at Mercy General Hospital, demonstrating that true skill and courage never fade. He turned to Henry. Dr. Nguyen, on behalf of the United States Navy, I present you with the Navy Distinguished Public Service Award, the highest honor we can bestow on a civilian. The medal was pinned to Henry's suit. Applause filled the room. But Henry wasn't looking at the medal. He was looking at his hands, the same hands that had saved Marcus Stone in 1987, that had saved the girl in the ER, that had served tea for 40 years while he pretended to be someone he wasn't. Thank you, he said quietly, but I am not a hero. I am just a man who couldn't forget how to heal. Marcus leaned over. That's exactly what makes you a hero, Doc. The story of Henry Nguyen isn't about a tea seller who secretly knew medicine. It's about how we decide who deserves our attention and who we ignore. Dr. Ashworth looked at Henry and saw a polo shirt, a trembling old man, a nuisance. He saw everything except the truth, that the person standing in front of him had more skill in his pinky finger than most doctors develop in a lifetime. We do this every day. We judge people by their clothes, their jobs, their appearance. We decide who matters based on titles and credentials, not character and capability. But expertise doesn't always come with a white coat. Courage doesn't always come with a uniform. The person who can save your life might be the one you overlooked, dismissed, ignored. Henry Nguyen spent 40 years hiding from who he was. He thought that if he stopped being a doctor, he would stop feeling the pain of everyone he couldn't save. He was wrong. Because some things are part of us, some callings can't be silenced, and some gifts are too important to keep hidden, no matter how much pain they carry. So the next time you're tempted to dismiss someone, the janitor, the cashier, the old man with the tea shop polo, stop. Look closer. Ask yourself what you might be missing, because you never know who's hiding in plain sight, and you never know whose life they might save. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked, or have you underestimated someone else? I read every response. Subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, a homeless man stops a robbery and the police discover he's a missing war hero. You don't want to miss it.